Hey everyone, it's time for my weekly college basketball top 10 rankings. And we got some shakeup after last weekend, notably in the top spot as Duke overtakes Michigan, courtesy of their big win head to head last weekend at a neutral site in Washington, D.C. I was skeptical. I have been big fans of Michigan, a little bit nervous about Duke's perimeter play, their guard play, inconsistencies there, at least on the offensive end, and then also the foul trouble aspect for Duke. Boozer had 4 fouls, but Gungba stays out of foul trouble, so they are able to challenge Michigan around the basket, keep Morez Johnson and Lendenborg at bay. So I actually have Duke in the number one spot. Now they have the number one in the net rankings. However, Michigan still by a slim margin is number one in both Ken Palm and Bart Torvik. So this is really a 1A, 1B type of situation. And actually, you could add a third team and go 1C, and you have Arizona. They win at Houston, looked really impressive doing it. That looked like more of the Arizona team that we've come to expect this season after back-to-back losses to Kansas and Texas Tech in overtime. And looking at the rest of the road for Arizona, they have Kansas at home, they have Iowa State at home, so their two toughest remaining games at home, and then they go to Colorado. So theoretically, they could be 29-2 heading into the Big 12 tournament. So Arizona really like their position right now as well. So those three teams, I think, have kind of elevated themselves away from the rest a little bit. Still certainly capable of making Final Fours, still certainly capable of winning a national title. But I got Duke, Michigan, Arizona, top three right now. Number 4 this week, I have Iowa State. They're number 8 in Ken Palm. They are number 8 in the net. But I actually really like that they have some big wins. They've beaten Kansas. They've beaten Houston. Both of those happen to be at home. We all know about Hilton Magic, Hilton Coliseum, but I think really to elevate Iowa State in the rankings, they're going to have to win a game away from home. They go to Arizona next Monday, which should be a really interesting game. Before that, they get Texas Tech at home. Now, without Toppin, Texas Tech still capable, but I think Iowa State can get past Texas Tech. Number 5, I have UConn. Now, they've slipped a little bit in the metrics. They are number 12 in Ken Palm. They are number 9 in Bart Torvik, and they are number 10 in the net rankings. However, in my opinion, just looking at it from a who do I think are the best teams that they went head to head, who would win? And I got UConn still at number 5. So the really only bad loss this year was at home to Creighton on the 18th. But they rebounded with a nice win at Villanova last Saturday. Tonight, the 25th, they get St. John's, which will be a big game for them. Revenge game. They lost to them earlier at Madison Square Garden. So UConn picks that win up. And that kind of puts them in the driver's seat back to tied in the Big East Conference with St. John's. And I think that's another win that they're going to need. If UConn wins out and they end the season with 3 losses going into the Big East tournament, I don't know how you can project anything other than a potential Final Four pick from UConn because of the pedigree of that team. Number 6, I have a team that UConn beat head to head, and that's Florida. Florida is really playing well right now. They have won their last 7 games in the SEC, and I really like the way their guards have started to play. Now, there's a couple teams here. Florida, kind of like Arizona, doesn't shoot a ton of threes, and the ones they do, they're not great percentage-wise, but they're so good in the front court that they can make up for that. Some of the few teams in college basketball who don't put an emphasis on three-point shooting. So Florida is sitting at 21-6 right now. They've only have 2 losses since the calendar flipped to 2026. They get Texas and Arkansas this week. Arkansas at home. Big game there in the SEC. And then they finish with Mississippi State and at Kentucky. So 3-1, I could see going there. Florida right now is on top of the SEC. And if they even take one more loss, they're still likely to win that league. So a Florida team coming up, a championship winning the SEC outright. Pretty hard to keep them out of the top 10 rankings. Next, I have Houston at number 7. They're 6th in Ken Palm. They are 6th in Bart Torvik. Now, they have 3 straight losses, but those 3 losses are at Iowa State, home against Arizona, and at Kansas. That might be the toughest 3-game stretch any team will play all year. Their offense is a concern for me. They last year relied so much on Juwan Roberts inside scoring, especially late in games when they needed a bucket, they could go to him. And they just don't really have that presence right now. They were hoping that was going to be Chris Sanak, freshman, but he hasn't provided that. And Joseph Tugler is a great defensive player, one of the best defensive players in college basketball, but he's not really an offensive player. So they're relying on a lot of jump shots from Kingston Flemings and Milos Uzan and Manuel Sharp. And then even the other night against Kansas, you saw some Mercy Miller get more minutes than he is typically playing. So that you can tell Houston's trying to create, they're taking more outside shots to pull up jumpers, which Flemings is great at, but they're going to have to find a way to get to the rim, to finish around the basket. Maybe it's lobs, something like that. But they finish now that 3-game stretch is out. They got Colorado, Baylor, Oklahoma State. They should win those 3 games. So they should finish at 26-5. And, outside of Arizona losing 2, right now Houston's 2 games back at Arizona. So Arizona likely to win the Big 12 this year. But you got Houston, Iowa State, Kansas right there, 2 games back. Number 8 this week, I have Purdue. They're 7th in Ken Palm. They are number 7 in Torvik, and they are 6th in the net rankings. Like Purdue a lot. I've been a little bit flummoxed by their season, though. Really had high expectations. They get blown out at home against Iowa State in December. They lose at UCLA. They lose at home to Illinois. They lose at Indiana. And then they weren't even really competitive with Michigan at home. I know it was an 11-point game, but Michigan was in control of that game throughout the whole entirety of it. Purdue finishes with Michigan State, Ohio State, Northwestern Wisconsin. If they can get Michigan State at home and finish out the season, they get Wisconsin at home. And so then you're looking at a team that goes 16-4 in the Big Ten. They will not catch Michigan. Michigan's going to win the Big Ten. But 16-4 in the Big Ten is going to be good for 2nd or 3rd place. They're going to probably finish at 26-5. That's a great season by most standards. Purdue had really high expectations this year. But I still think, I trust Matt Painter and Braden Smith, Kaufman Wren. Fletcher Lawyer is kind of the wild card for me. Like if he's making shots, they're going to be pretty good. But him and Cox need to make shots for that team. I do think Purdue finishes strong and gets a run going here in the Big Ten tournament. At number 9, I have maybe a little bit of a surprise. I have Virginia this week. I watched Virginia in person last week. I was in Atlanta for work, saw them play at Georgia Tech. Not a great opponent to see them play, but they demolished NC State this week as well. Virginia's only got 3 losses on the season. So I'm really digging Virginia. I think they're quietly one of the better teams in college basketball. 3 losses. They lost in November to Butler. That's not a great loss. They lost to Virginia Tech in triple overtime, and they lost to North Carolina by 5. So those are their 3 losses. Now, the big game for them, they have coming up Saturday at Duke. Don't really expect them to win, but I do look forward to the matchup between DeRitter for Virginia and Boozer. I think Virginia's guards are really dynamic, and that's going to present a challenge to Duke's guards. Foster and Evans and Dame Sarr, really good defensive. Caden Boozer, really good defensive players. But that's going to be a challenge, I think, for Duke. That game, I believe, will be closer than some of the projections think and some of the lines I've seen. So watch out for that game. But really high on Virginia. Really like that team. They beat Ohio State in a neutral court game as well. So that's another nice win for them. So if they get that Duke win, they jump up into that, I think, that number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament conversation, possibly 2 seed. If they win out, maybe win the ACC tournament or lose in the title game. So Virginia, really good squad. Keep an eye on them. And then I'm going to finish off my top 10 this week with Gonzaga. They're 10th in Ken Palm. They are 16th in Torvik, which is a drop, but they're 5th in the net rankings. So pick your metric there that you like. Bottom line for me is they keep winning. So they've lost to Michigan, and then they had that clunker against Portland, but they beat Santa Clara twice, who's probably going to be a tournament team. They've beaten St. Mary's. They get them again this weekend. So they get a revenge game against Portland tonight. They get St. Mary's Saturday. They win both of them. They finish the season at 29-2. I mean, this is just what Mark Few does, right? Like, you know, if you told us going into the year that Gonzaga was going to be 29-2 with the schedule that they played, you'd be like, they're going to be a 1 or 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. But because they lost to a Portland team that's not very good, we knocked them down a peg. I still think Mark Few and Gonzaga is poised to make the second weekend of the tournament. They're going to probably win the West Coast Conference regular season, and they're probably going to win the West Coast Conference tournament. But they have more challengers this year. St. Mary's and Santa Clara are both likely tournament teams. Those are really good teams out in the West Coast Conference. Braden Huff still remains out for Gonzaga, so that's a tough loss for them. But if the hope is in 3 weeks he's back and he's playing in the NCAA tournament, I like their chances to make a run again with this squad. So that's my top 10 college basketball rankings for the week, February 25th, 2026. Like I said, a lot of games tonight, a lot of big games this weekend. So this could dramatically change by the time we talk in a week. But as of the 25th, this is what I got. Duke, Michigan, Arizona starting to separate at the top.